What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another highly combustible reaction. We're jumping into the next one on our Know the Artist journey. Albrecht Dürer. Let's jump in. Let's check it out together. Let's see what we got. Get over, show the art tourists all the love in the world. Shout out to Mikhail for the request. I appreciate you taking us on these kind of journeys. Let's go. Let's learn a little something. We're going to Germany today.
Actress Albrecht Dürer was a man of many firsts. A pioneer of the self-portrait and the still life, he so brilliantly broke boundaries throughout his career and was duly celebrated as the German superstar of the Renaissance. I'm Rachel, and this is Several Circles.
If it's got a cat, we click the like button. We already
With that
did. You
flowing
should too.
hair and knowing stare, Albrecht Dürer is iconic. Christ-like in his appearance, he emanates a powerful presence and the gravitas of a true Renaissance luminary. If pride was Dürer's vice, who could blame him? His more virtuous qualities of curiosity and courage guided him to rare greatness. Through peril and plague, he traversed the icy Alps to soak up the artistic warmth and wisdom of the Italians. He was a keen observer who self-scrutinized from an early age and who brought the splendors of the natural world from distant backdrops into the foreground. What he couldn't empirically study, such as the rhinoceros successfully transported all the way from India to Portugal, only to drown in a shipwreck between Portugal and Italy, he ambitiously constructed from records and his own imagination, breathing life into awesome, exotic beasts and small creatures alike. All the while mastering multiple mediums, including—
Look at the damn... I could study some of these things for hours, just looking at each and every single little detail. There's so much going on in a single picture.
the craft of printmaking, which he finessed into an exceptionally fine art form. Durer was so in sync with the time in which he lived, an era defined by creation, exploration, and discovery. These were the days of Leonardo da Vinci, whose voracious appetite for innovation led to astounding triumphs of art and science, of Nicolaus Copernicus, whose radical heliocentric model changed the way society understood the universe, of conquests to foreign lands, which flooded European courts with far-flung treasures, many of which Durer would see for himself. One of 18 children, though only 3 survived into adulthood, Durer was born in 1471 in the German city of Nuremberg, a hub for humanist philosophers who mused about the potential of the individual. Nuremberg was rich in both culture and commerce. Nearby copper and silver mines made it particularly hospitable to metal workers, which is likely what attracted Durer's Hungarian father, Albrecht Dürer the Elder, who was a goldsmith. Durer was training in his father's workshop when, at the age of just 13, he created his first notable artwork, which is also said to be the earliest known self-portrait definitively attributed to an old master.
The oldest old master selfie of all time? That's hardcore. The people are even able to paint a self-portrait. Like, I could never just paint myself. Anybody that can do that, anybody who can... There's no way I could recreate what's going on here on any sort of medium whatsoever. A camera, but that's an easy way out. Like, this is hardcore. We know some people didn't always portray themselves exactly as they were. Maybe they wanted to go one way or another way or make themselves look this way or that. But very, very cool that it seems like throughout his life he was doing different pictures, self-portraits. What a way to reflect on yourself. What a way to look at yourself. Half of us don't even really look at ourselves in the mirror. We could make glance, but it's not like, let me look and see what my body's doing today. Like,
in the upper right corner, the inscription boasts, "I drew this after myself from a mirror in the year 1484 when I was still a child." The confidence and clarity with which a young Durer was illustrating complex human anatomy and gesture was remarkable, so he declined to pursue the family trade, instead seeking the tutelage of Michael Wolgemut, a respected local painter and printmaker who worked in the late Gothic style that still dominated regional art. Among Wohlgemuth's patrons was Anton Koberger, a publisher who also happened to be Dürer's godfather, so the nearly 4 years that Dürer spent in Wohlgemuth's studio culminated in his own fascination with printmaking, as well as his earliest known paintings, 2 portraits of his parents made in 1490. That same year, Dürer departed Nuremberg for the first of his many adventures. Dürer is thought to have traveled around Germany, gone west to the Netherlands, and possibly east to Austria. In 1492, he arrived in the Alsatian town of Colmar, home to the preeminent engraver Martin Schongauer. Also the son of a goldsmith, Schongauer achieved superior detail and dimension in his prints. Dürer probably arrived in Colmar with the intention of training with Schongauer, only to find that he had died in Germany the year before. Still, his influence is manifest in Dürer's early prints. From Colmar, Dürer moved on to the Swiss city of Basel, which, like Nuremberg, was a humanist headquarters with a burgeoning printing industry. The refinement of the printing press allowed new doctrines to circulate at an unprecedented quantity and speed, and Dürer swiftly gained traction as a professional artist, whose lively illustrations were sought after to accompany new books and editions. At his father's behest, Dürer returned to Nuremberg in 1494 to marry Agnes Frey, the daughter of a well-to-do local merchant. There's a certain lukewarm endearment in his depictions of her, and she would later model as the revered Saint Anne, mother of the Virgin Mary. But rude remarks in Dürer's letters suggest that she wasn't particularly inspiring to the artist, and their marriage would remain childless for reasons unknown. An outbreak of the plague shortly after their wedding prompted Dürer's decision to leave Nuremberg again, and alone, this time for Venice. The journey across the Alps must have been treacherous but sublime, as indicated by the watercolors, some of the earliest dedicated landscape paintings in European history that he made along the way there and back. His time in Italy was transformational. He vigorously studied and copied artworks by Jacopo de Barbari and Andrea Mantegna. One of Dürer's early pen and ink drawings, after an engraving by Mantegna, captures the movement and energy of the scene with an almost sculptural quality. Newly influenced by the more corporeal characteristics of Italian art, Dürer returned to Nuremberg in 1495, determined to thaw the chilly, conservative traditions of Northern Europe. He began to emphasize Italian values, namely proportion and perspective with regards to human anatomy, with special attention paid to the intricacies of human musculature.
That's one of the things about painting any kind of person. You gotta know the anatomy, otherwise the muscles don't look right you can see muscles under the skin. Like, I don't know, it's crazy. If somebody didn't know anything about the human body, it takes study, it takes like research, lots and lots of research. It takes looking at other artists to see what they're doing. It takes looking at models of the human body to see how things are supposed to fit together. We know that a person looks like a person, but could all of you really draw every single muscle line under the body? Could you get the shading in the right spots? You would have to know how everything was put together. You would have to study.
Forsake the Gothic heritage of home, but rather softened it with the addition of classical attributes. There's a resulting awkwardness to some of his earlier imagery, but he would hone it soon enough. In 1498, Dürer published a groundbreaking series called The Apocalypse, which would become one of, if not the first book to be both designed and published by an artist. With these dense, dramatic woodcuts, he amplified the intensity of the Book of Revelation. While earlier depictions were supplemental to the written narrative, Dürer illustrated the end of days with the magnitude that the subject commands, imposing in both scale and mood, even without the emotive impact of color. The apocalypse debuted near the turn of the century, when outbreaks of the plague and cosmological phenomena were feared as signs that the end was nigh.
The end has always been near. Every generation, the end is nearer.
With this series, Dürer tapped into that collective anxiety so effectively that his name resounded far and wide in its wake. In this self-portrait from the same year, a 26-year-old Durer possesses the poise of a distinguished nobleman. Shown at half-length and positioned in an alluring three-quarter format, after earlier Flemish and Italian portraits, he presents himself to the world as a compelling young talent. His expensive clothes reflect his ambitions and showcase his abilities with every pleat and fold. By portraying himself not as a craftsman in the studio, but as a dignitary, he's suggesting the way that an artist of his caliber should be valued. But it's this enigmatic self-portrait from the year 1500 that really commands our attention. Durer shepherds our gaze toward his eyes and hand, an artist's inherent tools, and yet this painting alludes to more than just his technical skill. Here, Durer's fashioned himself as an actual icon. His direct pose was almost always reserved for Christ, as is evident in countless Byzantine, early Netherlandish, and Renaissance paintings of the subject. This painting is often interpreted as an act of hubris, and he may well be alluding to the artist as a creator in God's image, but his forward-facing stance also suggests his propensity to look forward. Durer likewise saw holiness in nature and documented its unwieldiness as well as its mysteriously divine
Every single blade of grass.
order with a level of precision that precipitated the exquisite still lifes that became popular during the scientific revolution.
All these
He would
artists
swing
are back
between the
when. Shout out to you if you're a painter nowadays. Shout out to you if you're doing the same kind of things. Put in paint to canvas. Put in any kind of material to canvas, making it look amazing. Shout out to you, the people that are keeping it going, because some of these old masters are next level. Tell me you wouldn't want to just sit there and stare at these pictures for a few minutes. Amazing, amazing explanation as well. I love when people give me a little bit of history with the paintings. They explain them a little bit. It might just be what one person thinks or what some people think about the painting, but still it's nice to hear all of the different theories. Like, this could mean this could mean this could go to show this. That kind of stuff resonates in my brain. It's very, very cool to see. I would never be able to just dissect the painting like some of these art historians and such. Very, very well explained.
natural and supernatural realms, seeking perfection in symmetry and proportion. And there was still more to glean from these classical ideals. In 1505, Durer set out yet again for Venice, with reference to Giovanni Bellini, a Venetian artist whom Durer admired and met during this trip. He appears to have initially focused on society portraiture. Then, in 1506, Durer painted Jesus among the Doctors. Huddled within the scene is a 12-year-old Christ who, as the Gospel of Luke tells us, traveled to Jerusalem with his family for Passover. Mary and Joseph returned to Nazareth, but he remained and was found 3 days later in the Temple of Jerusalem, astonishing his elders with wisdom beyond his years. Durer depicts Christ in Bellini's soft, sympathetic style, while the figure next to him is almost Boschian in his ugliness. This especially harsh profile could also reference Leonardo's grotesques, which exaggerate human features to achieve what he considered ideal ugliness, and to prove how imperative proportion is to classical notions of beauty. A little scrap of paper peeking out from a book lets us know that Durer completed this painting in just 5 days. That same year, he painted the magnificent Feast of the Rose Garlands, which was commissioned for the Church of San Bartolomeo by an association of German merchants based in Venice. Bursting with color, as Venetian paintings do, he depicts a gathering of the Brotherhood of the Rosary, a Catholic confraternity, attended by the Virgin and Child, saints and angels, and earthly figures of great importance, including the soon-to-be Holy Roman Emperor, Maximilian I. And of course, Durer couldn't resist a cameo. Leaning coolly against a tree, he holds a piece of paper bearing his widely recognized monogram.
Awesome.
This painting reiterated Durer's celebrity, but he already enjoyed fame in Italy, so much so that the demand for his work, facilitated by the accessibility of his prints, created a market for reproductions. While in Venice, he raised one of the first known copyright cases in art history when he sued an artist by the name of Marcantonio Raimondi for forging woodcuts from his ongoing series, The Life of the Virgin, with his monogram. An exceptional printmaker in his own right, Raimondi would go on to collaborate with Raphael, who, surely thanks in part to Durer, saw the medium as an opportunity to step up his renown and make more money. Together, the two would go on to publish at least 50 works of art. Dürer will have seen a young Raphael's work in Florence, as well as that of his elder, Leonardo. And while there's no evidence to confirm that Dürer met either man, we do know that he would exchange artworks with Raphael in the coming years, a now lost self-portrait for a chalk drawing. And that Leonardo's revolutionary findings helped inform Dürer's own pioneering treatises. Renaissance giants such as Sandro Botticelli are among the legendary artists whose coveted creations you can invest in through Masterworks. Masterworks is the first platform for buying and selling shares, representing an investment in artworks by titans of art history, from Claude Monet to Jean-Michel Basquiat, as well as leading contemporary artists such as Banksy and Yayoi Kusama. Thanks to best-in-class research and acquisitions teams who determine which pieces to purchase and sell at optimal prices, you can buy in at a fraction of what major collectors pay. And in 2021, Masterworks members saw a 31% return on their investments. Art is a stable and appreciating asset class. Contemporary art prices outpaced the S&P 500 total return by 164% from 1995 to 2021. Join the 325,000 people who have signed up for Masterworks and diversify your portfolio by investing in some of the biggest and most beloved names in art. Visit the description below to learn more. Dürer returned to Nuremberg in 1507 with a new seamlessness between his Italian and Germanic influences. Unlike his earlier engraving of Adam and Eve, with its infinitesimal detail, this painted version shows the biblical couple against a black background so that our focus is almost solely on their divine anatomy, which is rendered with subtle motion and drama. Monumental in scale, these are the first life-size nudes to come out of Northern Europe. It was also in 1507 that Dürer began work on the Heller altarpiece, named after its patron, Jakob Heller, a prominent German merchant. The project was shared with Dürer's contemporary, Matthias Grunwald, who contributed the fixed wings of the altarpiece. Dürer's workshop likely painted the mobile wings while he contributed the central panel, which was acquired by the Archduke of Bavaria in the 17th century and subsequently destroyed by a fire. Fortunately, a copy had been made to replace the original, and various preparatory works, or at least presumed preparatory works, survive. More recently, their purpose has been called into question by the chief curator of Vienna's Albertina Museum, Christoph Metzger, who's proposed that these highly detailed drawings were more likely made to advertise Dürer's ever-improving technical skill, which was duly recognized by the newly appointed Holy Roman Emperor, Maximilian I, who put Dürer on the imperial payroll and commissioned everything from standard portraits to ornate commemorations of his rule, which culminated in the Arch of Honor, a highly decorative celebration of his lineage, his reign, his interests, and his general existence. Printed from almost 200 woodblocks, it's one of the largest woodcuts ever made. Still, Dürer's genius surpassed these flamboyant displays. Between 1513 and 1514, he created an outstanding trio of prints known as the Master Engravings. While they're not a series, they could be seen to represent the moral, theological, and intellectual virtues of medieval scholarship, and they're all derived from Dürer's existential musings. Taunted by the devil and death, who presents an emptying hourglass with a sneer, a determined knight rides on unfazed. An enlightened Saint Jerome toils to translate the Bible into Latin, while the hourglass above his head and a skull near the window serve as a reminder to live in pursuit of salvation. And then there's Melancholia 1. Melancholy was one of the four medieval humors, generally associated with volatility. Come the Renaissance, the trope of the tortured artist emerged, and a correlation was made between melancholy and creative brilliance. The winged personification of melancholy, grounded by despondency, sits surrounded by tools of measurement associated with sacred geometry, too dispirited to use them. The key to understanding this enigmatic picture may be De Occulta Philosophia, an influential text supposing that creativity is born from the imagination, which is the lowest form of genius, hence perhaps the one in the engraving's title, and of course, the artist's melancholy. It would seem that Dürer was trudging through a period of doubt, prompted or at least exacerbated by the death of his beloved mother. In 1518, he met the German priest Martin Luther, whose recently published 95 Theses launched the Protestant Reformation, which rejected all the loopholes and luxuries of Catholicism. Nuremberg was one of the first cities to embrace the Reformation, and Dürer became something of a Lutheran disciple. When the emperor died in 1519, the matter of Dürer's pension was called into question, so he set off to make a case for its renewal to Maximilian's successor, Charles V. In 1520, Dürer left for a tour of the Low Countries, this time with his wife Agnes in tow. His detailed travelogues record his attendance at Charles's coronation in Aachen. In Brussels, he saw a collection of artifacts looted from the New World. In all the days of my life, I have seen nothing that gladdened my heart so much as these things, he wrote, and I wondered at the subtle ingeniousness of the humans in strange lands. In Ghent, he visited the Van Eyck brothers' sensational altarpiece and real lions at the local zoo. When he heard news that a whale was beached on the shores of Zealand, he sailed the stormy seas just to catch a glimpse. Nearly shipwrecked en route, he never got to see the whale, but what he did catch was probably malaria, and he would never really recover. Dürer came back to Nuremberg in 1520.
He even died in his pursuit, even got sick in his pursuits. That's crazy. The lengths that people back then would go to just to find inspiration. I feel like we've lost a lot of that with modern times. I feel like there's certain people out there that are ambitious, that want to go do something, that want to, for the most part, a lot of people just sitting there going through the motions. What they're told the motions should be. Get up, go to work, come back home, get up, do it all over again, pay your bills. Like, people back then were hardcore. You hear about something, you're going to go on an adventure in search of it. Like, insane.
21. Now aged 50, his eyesight was failing, and his hands weren't as nimble as they used to be. He was still able to work, producing portraits of various humanist philosophers and a commission for Nuremberg's town hall, but he also dedicated time to his writings. His treatise on geometry includes the first scientific perspective on the subject of perspective by a Northern European artist, and the first of his 4 books on human proportion was published in 1528, just before he died at the age of 56. Whatever was mortal in Albrecht Dürer lies beneath this mound, announces his epitaph, written by the humanist philosopher Willibald Pirkheimer. It's said that his body was exhumed by his peers, who made a plaster mask of his face and casts of his hands. A lock of his hair, sent to his former apprentice, Hans Baldung, is now displayed like the relic of a saint in Vienna's Academy of Fine Arts. Unlike so many artists who only achieved posthumous recognition, Dürer was venerated during his lifetime, and he's still hallowed over 500 years later. His work has inspired so many generations of artists, from his own protégés to the modernists, and even the 16th century biographer Giorgio Vasari, who penned the Italian-centric Lives of the Most Excellent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects, filed Dürer as a, quote, truly great painter and creator of the most beautiful copper engravings. Dürer lit the torch for naturalists and self-portraitists, defended the artist's ownership over their creations, and repositioned the artist as a creation. He reminds artists to be seekers of truth and awe, and to document how complex, challenging, and wondrous it is to be alive. Wow. This episode's community spotlight is on Sydney-based artist Dalal Farah Baird. Painting is a meditative practice for this self-taught visionary who works according to a concept that she calls Dalalism, the idea that our spiritual, psychological, and biological activities are connected. She depicts the, quote, universe of cells within our bodies, which are deeply affected by our thoughts and emotions. Having lived in many different countries, such as Lebanon, where she spent 10 years before moving to Australia, she's observed the many commonalities that people share across cultures. With an emphasis on universal well-being, she reminds us, quote, look after your cells. Thanks for watching Several Circles. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos about the lives and work of extraordinary artists from across history and the present day. Let us know in the comments if there's an artist you'd like to know more about, and if you're an artist yourself, we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch for your potential community spotlight feature.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Know the artist Albrecht Dürer. Let's jump into some more. Let's learn about all of the great masters of the world, because it's damn intriguing, because they were a different kind of people back then. I feel like if more of us had that kind of adventure spirit, like, you know what, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to put myself in the mix, I'm going to go over here to see these things that people are saying are there. Go on your own adventure. It may have been discovered already, but that doesn't mean that you can't rediscover something. Life is about a lot more than what we make it out to be nowadays. Get over Show the Art Tourists, all the love in the world. Definitely underrated on YouTube. Underrated as hell. Get over, show the love, smash the like button if you liked it, the dislike button, but I won't believe you. Tell the next one about the Combustible. You guys be happy, healthy, safe, love you to the moon, the back. Peace.